Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Brian Bolander. I'm the chair of the MPMC Council, and I think you're well aware that we're less than 10 days away from the Media Trade Conference. It's going to be held again this year in Anaheim, California. Hopefully, you've got it penciled on your calendar, January 27th through 29th to join us. I know there's a lot of you manufacturers out here that want to understand best practices. And for those of you who are media partners, this is really a great way to learn and to really be a refresher about how you best can work with some of the aftermarket brands that'll be attending the Media Trade Conference. For those of you who don't know, we've got close to 100 media reps. We've got over 70 manufacturers there. It's going to be a fantastic conference. So use this next hour to really learn how we best can work together. This is all our job, especially now that we are the manufacturer products and the motorsports products and media council of SEMA. It's really equally shared between the manufacturer side of the business and also the media side. So we're in it together to build this performance aftermarket. So with that said, without further ado, please welcome Lisa and Derek from the DriveShop as they take you through how to develop a marketing strategy with content creators and how to maximize your working relationship with aftermarket brands. Derek, Lisa.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that introduction. And it's a pleasure to be here with all of you today and walk through and explore some of our best practices and thinking and experience in working with content creators, media, especially as you're preparing to come to the Media Trade Conference. Just as way as introductions, I'm Derek Drake. I'm the CEO of DriveShop. DriveShop is a marketing services company that works in the automotive space. We've been a partner working with SEMA for a number of years now. Most of our work is with OEMs in helping them support and market and promote their new vehicles as vehicles launch and come to market. We're going to talk a little bit about that activity and more about how we lean into working with content creators in the space. Lisa?
Yeah, hi. I'm Lisa. I currently oversee our creator services and media engagement here at DriveShop, working with our clients on how to partner with media for their marketing objectives. And I've worked with SEMA since 2017 on their influencer initiatives. And over the years, I've developed a network of hundreds of automotive content creators for the SEMA Social Media Correspondent Program, which is really a long-term campaign to share industry updates through social media, which we'll talk through here on the next few slides.
Cool. Thanks, Lisa. As far as today, what we want to focus on, and maybe some of you have participated in this session in the past, and we're going to revisit some of that same content, but really want to put today's conversation in context of preparing for Media Trade Conference. We'll go through a little baseline understanding of influencer marketing, talk a little bit about how it's evolved, how we see it adjusting and changing in the marketplace, how it's shifting, and the real rise and continuous rise of influencer marketing and social media and creator content. And then we'll spend the bulk of the time really when and how to engage with content creators and content creator partnerships, focusing on what we refer to as the 8 big gives. And the first 5 of those, how to really put emphasis on that in preparation for the Media Trade Conference and what that's going to be all about. You guys got plenty of time. You got 9 days, plenty of time to get ready for this stuff. Anything to add to that, Lisa, on today?
Yeah, real quick, when we go through the 8 gives, Derek's going to give the perspective of the marketing and brand strategy, and then I'll give the perspective from the influencers and content creators. So you kind of get both sides as we go through those 8 gives there.
Yeah, little point counterpoint. So we'll have some fun with it today. And I think as just a way as we go through this, if you have questions, comments, anything along those lines that you want to, please drop them in the chat. We're going to have a little time as we wrap up to go through those. If there's any that we can't get to, we'll respond back to you guys after the fact as well. But please feel free to do that. Drop stuff in the chat as we're going along. We'll keep a monitor on that. Okay. One thing I just wanted to hit on as we kick into this is a little discussion about content creator marketing. So in the context of everything that we do to help consumers find our products and our brands, fall in love with us, know why we're different and why we're special and why they should give us their hard-earned cash for the work we do every day. In that context of our marketing and messaging, content creator marketing fits kind of right in that gap between social and digital, really leaning much more into social these days. We do want to say this is one part of your overall marketing mix and platform. It shouldn't be an everything and an all in. You'll need everything else to support it. Your website, your own social channels, your own point of sale, all of that different stuff has to fit, right? But this is one part of actually telling your story in a particular way. Being able to tell your story through the lens of a third party, what we refer to as kind of three-party content. You, your brand, the creator, their messaging, and the consumer, the content they want to hear and what that looks like. And aligning to that, it does fit within your social strategy. And we'll talk a little bit about how that impacts your overall social strategy and how to use this different type of content. Anything to add to that, Lisa, from your perspective? No, we're good. Move on. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit about the rise of social content creators. And there's some numbers and charts and some data on here that's all good to reference if you like this kind of stuff. But what we see in the space is just a continuous explosion of the engagement of social content creators. And why it's becoming more and more part of that social media mix for so many marketers and brand marketers. I think one of the things to really understand in what's happening with that space is the reality, and what we refer to and we talk to with our clients about is that repetition is dead from a marketing standpoint, meaning that as people scroll through these little devices and they go through the content on social, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or Facebook or any of that stuff today, as they scroll through, and the average consumer who's on social content, right, scrolls content the length of the Empire State Building every day, if they're seeing the same thing from your brand 2 or 3 times, that's not repetition that settles in on that platform. That's content that starts to piss them off. Consumers today want authentic, relevant, new, and entertaining content. Because of that, the need to engage with a third party to help create that volume and variety of content is something we see really smart marketers moving towards. And so the engagement with content creators and why we see this boom and this lift is because, hey, we're not running the same piece of content over and over and over and over again, trying to hammer it into people like the old TV channels, TV ads that I grew up with. Now, today it's 1 to 2 uses and out. And we've got to make sure we've got fresh variety and a huge volume and really authentic content to be serving up on these feeds to engage shoppers so that they stay engaged and entertained and not upset. And so this is where we see these trends of so much increase in the engagement with creators and the types of creators that we're engaging with. And because of that, when we look at how creators are used today, this is something we'll talk about as we get into the 8 big gives. We're really looking at getting creators engaged in these campaigns in one of 3 different ways. The first being earned content. Earned is where we're inviting creators to come and participate, usually in some kind of experience. They participate in that. They're not getting paid, but they're getting access to something unique, access to the use of a product, information, and experience. They're not getting paid for that. And the creator has their own discretion, really, in messaging. This is where they're coming on site and they're getting to actually create the story they want to, the messaging they want to. It's really free reign in that regard. And so we're facilitating that from what the experience is, and based on the experience, we're influencing what goes into the content. The second platform is editorial. And editorial, think of this more traditional PR, where there's, instead of a press release like we used to use in those days, it's now a brief. And we're providing the creator with a brief. Hey, here's the information you should be aware of about the brand, about the opportunity, about the activity, about the product. Here's information that you should know. Here's an experience that supports that information. And with that, we're trying to more directly influence what content actually gets out and what gets said. Oftentimes these are unpaid, but more and more editorial is being paid because of the collab structure, where we're collaborating with the creator to use that content on social channels for the brand as well. And then the third platform is licensed, where we're actually engaging with the creator to produce content specific for the brand. And this is content where the creator's getting paid because they're getting paid essentially as a creator of content, as a producer of content. Yes, it's getting posted on their channels, but we're also really using that content instead of or in lieu of a traditional ad platform or ad creative. We're briefing them. We're usually doing reviews of that content, making adjustments to posts, maybe edits, and really collaborating on the actual content that gets posted and used. And that's backed usually with an ad buy to amplify and boost that content, get that onto other channels, and have that reach bigger and broader audiences. So these are three different ways to consider as we go through the 8 big gives. How are we working with these creators? And in any given campaign activity, we can have different creators do all three of these for sure. We can have the same creator on different activities do each one of these and how this works. So as we go through this, just something to think about. I think the key thing we want to shift to now is talk a little bit about how this has come to light in the SEMA show. So I'm going to hand this over to Lisa.
Yeah, so we really kind of want to highlight who is using influencers in the aftermarket space, and SEMA is, and show SEMA as a real life example. So in our 5th year working with this program as a SEMA show takeover of social media influencers and content creators, to really tell all the stories live from the show floor, including new products from manufacturers, show segments like Battle of the Builders, and of course the SEMA builds. This year, we had over 140 content creators and media outlets on site that we were working with as part of this program. We had 4 key sections to this program that really helped make it a success for the SEMA Association, their members, and the creators that we work with. So our first step is to identify the influencers that we wanted to work with. As SEMA is a B2B trade show, we need to make sure that the creators that we work with can tell a compelling story. They're active on social media and have audiences that are interested in this aftermarket content. We then worked with SEMA PR and marketing teams on their objectives, the key show elements that they want featured in these creators' content, and where they want this content to live. Is it Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, etc.? We then go back to the creators and strategize on what this content messaging is, the platforms we want it to go on, when we want it to come out, the types of content we want to see. Is this images, or these stories? Is it short form video, long form video? And when exactly we want this posted during the week or post SEMA show. Then at the show, we work with these creators to really create this engaging content. So with the objectives we defined with SEMA, and then during the week of the SEMA show, we worked with them to create these custom experiences tailored for each creator during the week. So all 140, anything from vehicle placement at the show in high traffic areas to access to exclusive media events, making sure they were in the right place at the right time with press conferences, interviews with industry leaders and celebrities, and then outdoor activations and ride-alongs. All of these were experiences that they may not have been able to secure on their own. And then the last big piece is the content management and tracking to make sure that our content is performing as expected, which we'll jump into on the next slide.
Great. So this is, I think the next couple slides here, Lisa, are just some examples of some of the tools that are used to track and measure this content and give access to the different stakeholders and stuff that you're working with at SEMA, correct?
Yes. Yeah, so this is just, a snippet of our dashboard from the 2025 show, just a handful of the creators we were working with. It's incredibly helpful as it's capturing the content in real time as our creator partners, they're creating and sharing this content, and it's providing immediate metrics, which we are sharing with SEMA. The SEMA social team is immediately able to jump on this content, engage, organically reshare, accept collaborations, and then, do that community engagement for that additional amplification. And then we're also able to see what content is performing well relay back to the other content creators and influencers, and really kind of create this ripple effect to see what audiences are excited to see, what they're engaging with, what audiences really want to see at the SEMA show, so we can do those immediate on-site adjustments for content plans and strategies with our content creators. So we're reacting in real time for content to come out from the show floor.
Cool. And then there's so many different ways to look at data and metrics and stuff these days. I mean, this is just a snippet of looking at all the ways to look at content on different platforms, to look at content performance over time. Anything you want to add to that, just as an example of kind of how we do some of this measurement, Lisa?
Yeah, and so with this, there's so much information here, and our access to the up to the minute information is always key in shaping our programs. And it's more than just numbers. We want to see platform usage to content types, audience demographics, and the timeline of content. And it's not just about, the individual influencers. We want to look at all of the content produced, even as big as SEMA Show. I mean, again, we're looking at 7,000 posts that are coming out as part of this. So we want to see everything that can go beyond what the influencers can provide on their own. We want to look at every single piece, from one specific piece of content to an overall look at 7,000 as a whole. So it's a lot. Yeah.
Volume and variety of content. That is the platform for the future and messaging. And I think at the SEMA show, making sure that every story gets told, and there's a platform to do that. Cool. So as we move on, we're going to pivot now a little bit and get into talking about some best practices, particularly what we refer to as the 8 big gives of influencer marketing. And as we talk through these, we're going to put an emphasis, as Lisa said, on I'll kind of come at it from a brand perspective, and Lisa will kind of address it from a creator perspective. And the emphasis that we want to put to this, particularly today, as we review this for you guys, is to get into how to prep for a media trade conference. What will be some things between now and 9 days from now, when everybody's on site, to actually start to lay the groundwork for how to put these to work and what it would look like. So the first 5 are things that our recommendation is to really put some thought, energy, and attention to that before you get on site. You'll see that number 6 is where, if we were preparing to come, right, as a brand, what we would put emphasis is on site, with 7 and 8 being things that we would focus on a bit after the fact. Now, we're going to cover a lot, but we'll do it also in the context that if some of you have been working on this for months and you're well down the path of getting ready for MTC, great. Some of you may be on this call going, well, I have so much to do between now and then. How can I add more to this? There's no way I could do that. We'll walk you through the high points, key things to focus on, and what the top priorities are to get ready and to get aligned, so that you can make, from our experience, the best use of that activity working with content creators. Should we jump right in, Lisa? First one?
Yep, let's go for it.
Let's go. So the first give, and this is how we like to think of these, right? These are 8 points of how to get the most out of influencer marketing. To get the most, we give the most. So getting the most is about giving the most. The first thing to give, from our perspective, is time. And understand that when you're working with a content creator, they have their own schedule. They have their own schedule of time. They have their own posting cadence. They have their own things that they want to do for their own channels and what that looks like. They also, and we have to work within that. We have to work within their key schedule. We also have to look in terms of the time that they need to create the content. What does that actually look like? Is this stuff that, based on the content and where it's going to live in Reels? Is it going to be a forever post that sits on their feed? What do they need to be as time to create the content, do the edits, post, get the copy, get everything together? Or is this, a takeover and live feed? How is that going to work? So understanding the time to create the content is going to be important. Knowing what their posting cadence is. Oftentimes creators will have their own posting cadence, and you as a brand on your social should have your posting cadence, your own calendar. What does that look like? And as we align those, making sure that you're giving the time to be able to get the content out within that posting cadence. Most creators today, as your brand social has as well, should have a content calendar. You should be looking 2, 3, 4, sometimes 6 months out and know, okay, this is what I'm going to be posting and putting on social. This is my strategy and my plan. Knowing that is important. So as you get into what you want said and how you want it messaged, well, it's not just put a post up. I've actually got a whole calendar of stuff lined up. I need to be able to work that into the calendar and work that into your calendar as well. And then what other partnerships and stuff the influencer may have, the creator may have, and you may have as a brand. And so from a brand perspective in preparing for MTC, I think what would be key to go through and be really explicit about is understanding, okay, this is the content that the time I would like content posted, coming, what I'm bringing to MTC, the products that I'm bringing, the messaging that I'm bringing, the dialogue that I'm bringing. When do I really want content out into the marketplace? What does that look like to repurpose or to collab or repost and share content on my brand's content calendar? How will that impact when I can actually boost or amplify content that's out there in the marketplace or to utilize it? So to really think about what, from a timing perspective, is relevant to you and your brand and what's coming up in the next number of months in your own social calendar and your own marketing calendar, other activities, things that are coming up on your event schedule and things along those lines.
Yeah. And then, from the content creator perspective, have your own schedules prepared for these meetings. What does your schedule for the year look like? What are your builds, events, and races you're attending? What's your own posting cadence? And when are you making the time to create, edit, and post this content? How many partnerships can you realistically take on this year? The best creators only work with a select number of brands, so they can really dedicate their time. So have a plan on how you can really prioritize this content and partnerships. So have a plan going into this.
Excellent. So that's the first big give, time. Make sure you know your schedule, what you can give for time, what you're looking for, and bring that to the table for MTC. The second big give is creative freedom. And this is where, even in licensed, certainly in editorial, and absolutely in earned engagement with content creators, giving creative freedom to the creator to create, to develop the messaging, the story, and the content is key. The way we like to think about this and approach it is it's their story. The brand, you're going to step in as a guest appearance, as a character in their story. Maybe it's a long-term partnership and you're an ongoing character in their story. Maybe it is just a guest appearance and what that looks like, and you're there for a short period of time. But understanding that they're the experts on their audience, they're tuned into their audience, and the audience is tuned into them for their particular voice. If you're looking at a content creator and you look at their voice, how they're positioning, their story, everything that's on their channels, and you're like, yeah, but I want them to do X, Y, Z to be more like us, then I think you need to either kind of let that go as a brand and know that you want it to engage in their voice and their audience, and that's just how you want it told, or find somebody else that's a better fit. From a brand standpoint, you want to be able to seamlessly integrate into their story in the most authentic way possible. So in preparing for MTC and how to engage with creators, I think one of the key things to do in that is understanding what the guardrails are around your brand. What are the boundaries from a messaging and a content standpoint that you say, hey, this is what's important to us so that we stick within these particular boundaries? That may be boundaries like what channel you're on. That may be boundaries in how the product or brand is presented. That may be boundaries in terms of other content that's on a channel that seems to be in conflict with maybe your values or your perspective, or things that you want to lean into that may be how that audience engages with that creator. So really understanding from a messaging and a content and a brand standpoint what those boundaries are, so that you can establish what is freedom within those boundaries and what that looks like. The biggest driver of creativity is constraint. And so understanding what potentially the things are that are constraints for you and being really explicit about that opens up all kinds of possibilities within there. And so that's a key thing I would say to prepare for before coming to MTC.
And then remember too, the creators are the experts at creating content and stories for their audience. So let them do what they do best. You want to collaborate them on how they're going to tell your story, share ideas, ask for their intentions, and brainstorm together. But again, ultimately have fun with the content. Many influencers are okay with the brand approving their content before posting, but we really do try to keep that to a minimum, as it does take away from the authenticity, and can dilute their voice in the content on their own channels.
Excellent. Thanks, Lisa. So we're through the first two things to get done before MTC. Understand your calendar, your timing, what's coming up, where your boundaries are from a brand, know what your calendar is, and then be able to really articulate the uniqueness of your voice as a creator. So we're 9 days out, but what we've covered is doable at this point. I think we can all agree to that. You can make this happen. We'll get on to the third one, which is require a little more work and pre-work for you, but as part of getting the most out of the engagement and giving the most, one of the third big give is compensation. And we think this is actually really important to be able to really think about the engagement with the creator and understanding this is a marketing partnership. We're looking at access to their audience. We're looking at their expertise in their voice and their storytelling. We're looking for their content production, editing activity. You're not engaging a creator because, hey, they're just posting something on social. I think hopefully we've evolved beyond those days to understand and appreciate their unique expertise at developing, organizing, honing, and activating their audiences. And so when we look at how to engage from a brand standpoint, recognize that the best creators and influencers limit their partnerships. Because of that, because they're limited in what actually fits authentically into their story, that exclusivity and that engagement and exclusivity drives demand drives the engagement for some compensation. We are valuing access to their audience, and we are valuing access for their time and their expertise to produce the content that we're looking for, and to really understand and explore that compensation is not always just cash. What else can you bring to the table? Now, here, sometimes we obviously fall to things like, well, we'll do in-kind product swaps. That can be good. We can do access to a particular event. We can do access to a particular experience. That's all great and good, but also think it out in the context of what are the potential desires or needs or things that the influencer or creator might be looking for their own business and for their own growth. That said, usually at some level in this, on a partnership and engagement that really is driving strategy, there is a little bit of cash and dollars that do change hands. And it can be a mix of different things that comes to the table. And so it's in preparing for MTC from a brand perspective, looking at the things that you want messaged, the timing that you have to do that, the focus on the creative boundaries that you're looking for, and then what really can you set aside to and afford to put towards this project in terms of in-kind cash compensation, any kind of experiences that you can provide. What can you bring to the table that is something that you can explore with the creator, and be prepared to have that so you know what you're comfortable talking about with creators when you get there.
And then from the other perspective, creators have an idea of what you're willing to do for trade and what you will need compensation for a long-term partnership, if there's travel involved, the quantity of parts, or if the brand is requesting a high amount of deliverables or time to execute this partnership. If you're willing to do trade, what is the experience? What's the part that you need in order to make it work? What is going to be worth your time for this partnership? And long-term relationships are worth time on this one. We see really great partnerships develop based on earned to start. So don't discount an earned partnership to start.
Absolutely. Great. Now, so we've got compensation now set aside. Everybody's got ideas of what they're willing to do and what comes to the table, what they can budget for based on that. And then we come to the fourth one, which is the formal contract. And this is where we still amazingly see brands not take the step to get into this. I can't tell you the number of stories we get from brands and clients and partners that we work with who say, well, creator marketing or influencer marketing didn't work for me. I didn't get what I expected. Well, okay, well, let's take a review of your contract or agreement. They said, well, we didn't have one. This is where everything we do, every post, every engagement, this is about setting the boundaries and the expectations across the board. And so, for us in this, it's making sure that each agreement has clear posting requirements and the timing of what's going to get posted and where. And the more specificity around that, the better. The exclusivity and the length of time that you get to use that content. Hey, you're not going to post anything else from this segment, from this category, from this industry on your channels during this period of time or beyond this time. So we've got kind of exclusivity to your audience, and how long that's going to last, what rights you have to use the content. Do I get to reshare this? Do we get to repost this? Do we get to use this in digital and social advertising? How many times, if at all, you get to do editorial corrections? More and more we see, things that, hey, if something that's a product spec or spelling or anything like that that's incorrect, of course that gets corrected. But it can be even more in terms of some of the messaging and briefing, and the editorial corrections tend to move more extreme or more involved when you get towards licensed content, with very minimal on the earned side. And then indemnifications, making sure that, not only all of the posting requirements and all the regulations and stuff are met, but anything in participation in the events and things like that, that's all important to have laid out into a formal agreement. And I'm not necessarily advocating that you take time to get, if you don't have an agreement, to get an attorney to get something drawn up before MTC, but really go through what are the terms that you would want into an agreement with the creator, making sure that you have some clarity around those particular terms, and almost prep for yourself, as I would for myself if I was coming to this as a brand, almost like a little term sheet. Hey, I would like at least so many posts and this kind of timing, this sort of exclusivity. Here's how I would like to use the content. This is how I would want people to review it, make sure it's corrected, make sure you get it clear in your head what you think would work for you, and what those guardrails are and what you would be comfortable with based on the type of content you want to engage, how you want to use it, timing it, what that would look like. But I think being real explicit and prepared to talk about these would be an important step for prep.
Yeah, and then, Derek, so glad you called that out, because this is the responsibility of the agency or the brand to provide as part of the partnership, not the responsibility of the influencer. And this has to be executed before any product exchanges hands and content is shared. So from the influencer's perspective, this is really important as it outlines the posting requirements, the timing, it protects your rights to content and product claims. So going into the media trade conference, have an idea of what you're willing to negotiate on for your own exclusivity, the usage rights and editorial, as well as what you think is a fair timeline for quantity and timing of posts for specific partnerships. So this is a critical step in the partnership, and really does protect both sides. And from our perspective, we don't move forward with campaigns until this step has been completed. So please do your due diligence on both sides for number 4.
Yeah, that's a great point, Lisa. I do want to just reiterate that it is the responsibility of the agency or the brand to bring this stuff forward and make that happen. So we talked about 4 key things for MTC. Not only talk about timing and the creative boundaries and stuff that we laid out, but now we've got into a little bit more and going, okay, what can I bring to the table as far as compensation or expectations for that? And what are the terms? Still all doable in the timeline that we have and to be able to map out to get ready for MTC. The 5th one will be a little more work, and where I would, if I were in your guys' shoes, we'll probably spend a bit more time on in prep for MTC and getting really, really focused on this 5th big give, and that's your written brief. That's taking time to get really explicit about the messaging that you ideally would like to have get out to the audiences that you want as shoppers and buyers for your brand. And this is time to take a look at the marketing materials that you probably already have, the work you've done already in your brand and product marketing, and contextualize that for content creators and influencers to create content on social. This is getting really explicit and as specific as possible on who should buy your brand, who should buy your product, who is the ideal customer that you have developed that product for. Even go so far as to put a little persona together, in terms of who they are and what their life or life cycle is like and when they should buy it. Meaning what is happening in their experience that is saying, oh, this is definitely the time when they would be making a trigger and a purchase. Have they bought a new vehicle and next time to accessorize that vehicle? Has something happened in their journey in racing? Have they moved up to a different class, different level? What's happened there? Or has some other incident or activity or experience happens that's triggering them to make a purchase or triggering them to go, this is a time to consider a purchase, and puts them into market. Get real clear about where that product can be purchased and what is the ideal path to purchase. Is it through a third party? Is it direct? How do we want to engage them to actually get and find your product? Maybe there's specific creators that are engaging for specific retail channels with you, and that's part of a partnership or program that you want to promote. So getting real specific on where your products can be purchased, and then laying into, essentially really explicitly what your product does, what your brand does. So don't assume that they know it or they will figure it out. Get real explicit about that and why what you do is unique. Why is what you do special and better than anything else for the customer you want that is experiencing that need, and is connecting with that retail or purchase point to make that buy. Getting real explicit in that for the content creator. I think this is a really important part from a brand perspective, because we engage oftentimes creators for their storytelling, for their platform, for their audiences, and recognizing that they're phenomenal, great creators are phenomenal storytellers. They're phenomenal content creators. They're great at engaging and maintaining audiences and conversing and engaging with them. That doesn't necessarily mean they're excellent marketers. And so being able to give them the foundational pieces that we do from a marketing perspective to work with in their storytelling, and not assume that because they're creators or because they're consumers that they could back into this information. Oftentimes we see brands say, well, what we want them to like figure out what's right for them. Well, they will do that, but give them the foundation to make that happen. And so this is where I would spend a bulk of my time as a brand coming to MTC and going, okay, how explicit can I get in this for different products, for different customer segments, for different retail channels, and what is it that I really desire that messaging to be? Because this is where the fuel comes to engage the creators and set them free in their creative expression and storytelling.
And then I think too, for the media trade conference, influencers, media, do your homework and help the brand out with this. Come prepared with ideas on how to partner. So research some products that you find interesting that could align with your audience and interests, and come prepared of what you think could work for the partnership that could ultimately be incorporated into this brief. They want you to become the storyteller to help them tell the story. So what could you do for that? And then we'll take this written brief and make it all flow together. So have these ideas ready, take that brief and make it all work.
Cool. Thanks, Lisa. So those are the 5 things as we thought through this and went through the 8 big gives. These are the 5 big gives to get done ahead of time. Understand your timing, understand your creative boundaries, what real budget, from a compensation, product in kind, experience and stuff could you bring to the table, or would you be looking for what the terms are of an engagement, and then really spend time and effort getting explicit around the brief. And all of those 5 things to get nailed down before MTC really sets the stage for the 6th conversation, the number 6. And this is where ideally, if you've done those things, as you get into MTC, because you've got so much time with your appointments and stuff to engage with everybody, this is where you're spending most of the time. You're not spending a lot of time, diving into terms or trying to figure out if there's a figure like, okay, well, this is where my boundaries are. This is what I'm looking for. This is what the timing is. This is what I can do. Yeah, all that sounds great. This seems like a fit. Okay, maybe, but maybe not. But let's spend the bulk of our time really exploring what are the experiences that we could have together that are going to accomplish everything that we've both prepared and brought to the table. How can we do that together? Is this a product Tyler demonstration? Is this a visit or tour to the factory? Is this a sit down or an interview with a key engineer or an executive or a founder or another maybe even another creator that you sponsor or participate in, or a celebrity? Is this attending an event? Is this coming out to a corporate activity? Is this interactions with your customers, your users, your other fans, chances to come out and engage with them, or engage with race teams or other people that you might support or builders that you support to facilitate the production of some of that content? This is where I would think we'd want to spend most of the time together that we have at MTC to explore this. And knowing those other points, knowing the timing, the creativity, the compensation, the key terms, and the focus on the product messaging and who you want it messaged to and when, that allows these conversations to be meaningful instead of 15, 20 minutes of what could be, but it's not grounded in anything. And if it's not grounded in anything, then there's not much to take from it. And so you have a good conversation. Yeah, that seemed nice. That seemed like it was a good dialogue. I like that person, but there wasn't anything actionable to move on after that. And so that's why getting those first 5 gives nailed down and then coming with a laundry list of some of these ideas. But this is where the creative engagement and expression can turn MTC into a really powerful collaboration so that you've got actionable things coming out of it that you can bring to market.
And then for, the content creators and influencers, be prepared to talk about your own ideas about how their product and brand can be featured in your own content. Is it going to be just an install video? Or, to Derek's point, do you want to go see the product being made and interview these engineers and feature it in part of your Tech Tuesday video series? Do you want to go visit the team on site at a race and interview all the racers that are featured in their lineup? How can you take this conversation from the Embassy Suites in Anaheim, California, and elevate it into becoming a spokesperson for that brand through your own social media? A big tip for brands: go for a shared experience with multiple influencers. So really think of it like a party where you're bringing everyone together for their own unique expertise and audience. So not only are you building and expanding audiences, but you're creating this really fun collaborative space where everyone can interact with other creators and get this really great shared narrative. And you're expanding this content across social platforms and audiences there.
Yeah, that's a great point, Lisa. And I think the magic of what can happen at an Embassy Suites in Anaheim is extraordinary if you come with curiosity, if you come with an openness, and prepared to do that. Obviously, it's not the content from the Embassy Suites that matters, what comes after that, what's possible. So it's definitely a great opportunity, and such a unique experience in this space to be able to do that. But coming with curiosity and an openness and being prepared for that, and then exploring, okay, what can we do together that's really going to be unique and different, and using your time together to explore that is really a special opportunity. And that's where spending time focused on this piece, on the experience, is one that can really make things work. Then there's 2 more gives that really would come after, not only after MTC, but kind of after even the experience itself. The 7th give is really focusing on collaborative content. This is the opportunity to really work together on how this content makes it into life. And so, Lisa, do you want to talk from the influence perspective first, and then I'll talk a little bit about the brand on this? Yeah.
This is a huge interest from influencers when you commit to do this, as it helps expand their audiences and builds followers and promotes them, as well as it promotes your brand and product. So by using their content for marketing purposes, either through social media, in your newsletters, as testimonials on your website, you're more connected to the brand and really legitimizes them as a partner. And social media has made it so easy these days to collaborate and reshare content, either through collaborative posts, resharing to stories. Do that as an absolute minimum, but it's really easy to find ways to connect with content creators and reshare their content collaboratively.
Yeah, and I think that's key. It is really easy to execute on today from a brand standpoint. So coming out of MTC, if you've got some budding partnerships, you've explored and brainstormed some unique and creative experiences, you know what that's going to look like, then it's going back to that wheel of your overall marketing mix and going, okay, how can I utilize that content, this engagement to really drive everything across my marketing mix? Yes, I'm going to collaborate and share the posts. We're going to put that on multiple channels. What ad dollars might I put behind that to boost that post out to different audiences? How could I support maybe even utilizing some of that content in with some retail partners who maybe even they would like to allow me to boost it out on their channels? All different things to bring to the table to make a bigger use of what is and a bigger impact of what comes from that. When we can make a bigger impact with the content that comes out of these creator experiences, then it justifies driving more into that then feeds the whole system and the whole process that makes it work. And so that's the next big give. They'll really come after the MTC engagement and mapping out how you can utilize this in the whole wheel of your marketing experience. And then the last big give is the diagnostics, the data, understanding the measurement and performance around this. Lisa shared just some of the details, a very small amount of the details of the data that we pull for the work around the SEMA show in particular. And there's lots of different ways to do this. We're not here to advocate for one platform or for one approach at all. There's lots of different ways to do this, except we would say that it is the responsibility of the brand to drive these diagnostics. So from a brand standpoint, when you map out, this is my objective, this is what I want to accomplish, here's how I want to do it, these are the engagements I want to have, here's how I want to drive collaborations. Well, what is the measurements and the KPIs that you're going to put to that? What do you expect to get from that engagement, and how are you going to measure the performance against that on the back end? There's different agencies and platforms and systems that can support that, but knowing what that is, what the kiss of death is to turn to the creator and say, send me an Excel spreadsheet or updates on how the content is performing, because that is only one small piece of what should be your overall mix. If you've been paying attention for the last 46 minutes, you've picked up on that. But also in the context of making sure you're driving that content further, driving it through your other marketing channels, making utilization of it as a whole. And so there's ways to syndicate data from the different platforms. There's tools that can be used to measure that. There's things that you should be looking at in your other marketing mix, your own digital and social channels to see how that content is utilized and how it performs. But having a plan for the diagnostics measurement before you launch into the program is key, and really the responsibility of the brand to pick up. The last piece I'll say on that before passing it to Lisa to talk about from an influencer perspective is to share this data and the measurement and the approach with the creators. You guys are in it together. So once you dive into this project together, you're in it together. It's not like, well, I'm going to measure it and not tell them how it's going, or you're really in it together and you're working collaboratively to make it the most productive as possible. So come to the table with a plan for approach and then be able to share that with them. It just helps make the partnership and everything work that much better.
Yeah, you actually covered on most of my stuff. But again, really, for me, again, the kiss of death, right? Like, I want the creators focusing on producing the content, getting it out to their audiences, getting me the assets that I can share with my clients, getting that professional editing. I don't want them doing admin. So making ways to streamline that process enhances the efficiency and the overall partnership. So find a way to make it easy for them, take the admin off their plate, find an agency, find a platform that works, that can report on the overall performance of the campaign versus Excel spreadsheets and hyperlinks.
Yeah. Yeah. I do get a little enthusiastic about measurement data. So, so no surprise I jumped on your toes there. Sorry, Lisa. All right. So to recap a couple of things from today, influencer marketing, right? That's an approach where you really are a character in their story. And to approach it in that way. And maybe you're making a guest appearance, maybe you're a main character or a key partner and what that is, but understanding that that's the approach. that it's a chance to engage with a bigger audience, with more brands, with engaging more creators, and that's kind of why it's on the rise. The volume and variety of content that's needed to help engage and entertain and involve and activate shoppers today, especially on social, is necessary. I created an ad and I ran it over and over and over again as just repelling people on the platform today. That's not what stops thumbs. That's what gets them moving and scrolling faster than ever and skipping your brand and making it upset about it. So having a volume and variety of content is key. And when creators are used in this space, all types of initiatives, explore that in so many different ways. And then approach as you get ready for MTC, these 8 big gifts. The first 5 in particular, should go back and review this: the timing, the creative, the compensation, the contract terms, and the overall engagement in the experience and what that platform is going to look like. And then the brief on your product and your brand. Getting ready for all that and those conversations for MTC is what's key. So that's a review of our creator partnerships. Lisa, anything to add on our recap?
No, sorry, I'm multitasking and trying to respond to questions here real quick.
Okay, well, let's get into some questions.
Yeah, and I'm going to put my email address in the chat. So if anyone has any questions outside of this, please feel free to reach out. I'll also be at the Media Trade Conference, so please say hello. Always want to say hi to people. So hold on, let me send this and then I'm going to get to it. There we go. Okay. Let's see here. Bob, I'm going to respond to you directly so I can get you examples for number 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8. I don't know if we can cover that here, but I got you. Don't worry about it. Derek, I'm going to pass one over to you while I try to find another question. So Cam is asking, how do you identify the right influencers to collaborate with in each market? Where can you find metrics to support the right influencer?
It's a good question, Cam. So there's a number of different ways to explore finding the right influencers. And I think part of that can be these events and experiences like MTC, where influencers are coming to the marketplace that are engaged and interested in actually creating a partnership and making that happen. That's a really unique experience. The other thing that I would definitely explore with is there's systems and tools that are out there where you can go into a platform, an online platform. You can look at certain interest segments, and it will pull up creators and influencers that cover certain audience details, certain products, certain messaging. But I think the hands down like easy way, look at who's following you on social, who your customers are, your products are, and stuff that's following you. And then look at who they're following. Look at their audiences, see who they're following, see what creators they're engaged in is following as well. And that's a path of exploration. Know who your customers are and they're following you. And then who else do they follow? Most likely, people like your customers are going to be following the same people that they're following and the other brands and creators and engagement that would look like. Lisa can probably jump on that a little more, but that's just kind of a grassroots way to get a feeling for the type of creators that might be a good fit for your brand. See who's following you, see who they're following, and then explore the audiences of the people that they're following on social.
That's my go-to first when I'm looking for a content creator for a brand or a new campaign is that's my first step always. Yeah. And then let's see here. Don had a really good question too. So are there any industry norms for terms we may rely upon? Maybe a sample available we can ask so we can ask ourselves the right questions.
I think I would, and maybe I'm not reading into the question correct there, Don, but
That came through when we were talking through the contracting. So
yeah.
maybe some like quick do's and don'ts for terms and conditions.
Yeah, I think I would get real clear just as far as industry norms on do's and don'ts in the contract terms. Yeah, I think what's important from that standpoint is to really get clear on what your use of that content is going to be. where I see brands maybe struggle a little bit in the contracting phase or create some issues is they want all these rights, but they don't have a plan to use them. And so if you want, like, I want year-long rights and I want rights to your likeness to utilize and all this content, but you don't have a plan to use it, then you're creating challenges for yourself in the contracting stage. So knowing how you want to use the content and being real explicit around that up front is important before really nailing down the contract terms. I think typically what we see is anywhere from 1 to 2 months of exclusivity from a segment standpoint on a channel with a creator. Sometimes for a longer term partnership, it could go more than that, but that's, I think, pretty reasonable. The usage of content in terms of from a collab and from a social or be able to co-post and put out can be anywhere from 90 days to a year, depending on the scope of the partnership and what that looks like. Definitely that's licensed content when you start to utilize it in other channels. And then I think balancing the experience that they're participating in with the volume of content that you're expecting from them is a really important consideration. Oh, come out to this company event that's going to be, a 3-hour event, and I want 10 unique posts. That's not enough. It's not enough of an experience to get that content. So balancing that in a conversation is key. And then I think what I've seen the agreements come together that are best, and we talked about this a little before, is come with curiosity. Let that be part of the collaborative experience with the creator. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Lisa, but those are just some of the general things: exclusivity, rights, and timing. Yeah.
Great. And then we've got one more question, and it kind of cut off, but we can address it and then I'll follow up with it. And it's always the question, we get this every year, and it's the question of the session every time. What's the best way to explore the compensation that the creators expect? Is there any information you can share about the industry standard expectations on the amounts that creators expect per metric, followers, engagements, views, etc.? So Derek, I don't know if you wanted to weigh in on that one real quick.
Yeah, I will. There's not an absolute standard. I would say we did a campaign recently for a major automotive brand. Um, just in context, the overall campaign and experience was a solid 7-figure spend. We had creators participating in it. But because of the uniqueness of the experience, and the high profile measure the experience, we were getting really great high profile creators participating, generating and overextending licensed content for a few $1,000s each. Now it was a 2-day engagement, so it wasn't like we're taking a week out of their time. But because of the uniqueness of the experience, they were willing to participate and do it with a little bit of compensation. We've had other experiences where, yeah, it's a 7-figure or 6-figure payout to the creator for what they're producing and what they're doing. So it really is looking at it in the whole picture in terms of the uniqueness of what you're providing to them, the value that would have to the creator, and what that looks like. And ultimately, that's what the compensation conversation comes down to. What is the value of this partnership to the creator? Hey, to the creator, we're going to compensate you X amount, few $1,000s for this content, but we're going to put X tens of thousands of dollars behind a whitelist or boosted post that's going to put your channel out in front of X hundreds of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of people that are then going to see you and might engage in your channel, might drive more ad revenue, might do all kinds of other things for you as well. And so the compensation one can be about dollars and cents, absolutely. Where I think the most effective ones is really understanding the value of the partnership from the creator perspective. But that said, that doesn't really answer the question that you're asking, which is what should I budget? If I were coming to MTC, and wanted to get a half dozen or so collaborations out, I would budget a couple thousand to $5,000 each, at a minimum, to be able to come to the table to really get the kind of partnerships I would want out of this, the license content and what that would look like. Now, some of that could be in kind. It depends on what the value is to the creator, but we see these partnerships, really starting in the thousands of dollars and then going up from there. And I would put more into one or two instead of trying to dilute it out into three or four that really doesn't have as much meat on it. That would be my preference and my approach.
Great. I think we are at time. I try to respond to a couple people that we didn't quite get to. But again, my email is lisa@driveshop.com. If you're at the Media Trade Conference, please say hello. Would love to chat more. I love talking about this. So hopefully I get to meet more of you guys in person here in 9 days. I think that's what the countdown was. So again, thank you everyone for attending, and we will see you here in just a few days. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, MPMC. Thanks, SEMA. Thank you guys for participating. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.